I genuinely believe that inside of everyone there is some kind of secret, maybe even hidden goal. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about how you can use an ancient storytelling technique to help yourself go after that thing that you want in this life. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Maureen Wiley. I'm a professor of composition and literature, and today I want to talk to you about the hero's journey. If you're not familiar with the hero's journey, this is an idea popularized by another professor of literature, Joseph Campbell. In his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, Joseph Campbell explores the idea of a monomyth. This is a story that goes back throughout millennia, the hero's journey that covers several stages of the process of someone who maybe is a little bit reluctant at first, but then ultimately they rise to the occasion, go after their goal, fighting enemies, finding allies along the way, and ultimately become a changed person at the end. On this channel, we like to talk about using the power of storytelling to achieve things that we never thought were possible otherwise. My entire life has been changed by recognizing and leveraging the power of storytelling. And so today I want to invite you to join me on my own hero's journey to help you understand the power of storytelling. First, take a minute to think about any goals that you might have in your life. Whether you want to write a book or start a YouTube channel or have your own business or maybe even move to another country and start a new life there. What do you think is getting in your way? What do you think is stopping you from going after your goal? When I talk to my students about this idea of setting big goals or even just knowing what our big goals in life are, a lot of them tell me that they just don't really know how to get started, or more often what I hear is that they lack the willpower. Every time I hear this, I think, man, if only they knew that willpower is not the necessary ingredient to go after their goals and to achieve them. It's recognizing the power of story. This can refer to the story that they're telling themselves about what it takes to accomplish the goal, but a lot of times it actually has to do with the story they're telling themselves about the experiences they might have along the way as they work towards their dream. The real power of the hero's journey is recognizing which stage we are in the process and helping use that to connect to this common narrative, this monomyth that transcends culture, time, place, even any other distinctions that we might have as human beings. So you have your goal in mind, and maybe it seems really far off. This is not a bad thing because it means you are in stage one of the hero's journey. Stage one of the hero's journey is all about existing in the known world. That is the introduction to the hero's life. In this case, you are the hero of your own hero's journey. If you don't see yourself as a hero, know that a lot of heroes in myths throughout time and history have been reluctant ones. In fact, there's even a stage in the journey where the hero refuses what's known as the call to action. The refusal of the call is classic. A lot of people think of the hero's journey in its connection to the movie Star Wars because George Lucas read Joseph Campbell's work, recognized the power of the hero's journey, and then embedded it into the first Star Wars movie. Luke Skywalker absolutely is refusing the call in the beginning. He doesn't believe that he is the hero that this story needs. So in this first stage of the call to adventure, it's really just identifying what is your goal. This is a really important time to let your imagination run free. And the best exercise I've ever heard for this is, what would you do if literally no one on earth would have any thoughts or feelings about your choice? You take away all that external fear of judgment, of ridicule, of rejection. What is it that your heart tells you you'd like to do? I was only able to identify that I wanted to start making videos and putting them up on YouTube and work on my own creative writing projects when I recognized that the only thing that was actually holding me back was the fear of what other people might think and say. And obviously that's still an issue. Everyone who puts themselves out there feels a little bit of that feeling, but in this initial stage of the hero's journey, we don't need to worry about any of that yet. We're just allowing our minds to imagine, what is it that we would like to do with our one wild and precious life? I find it so helpful to recognize that actually feeling this resistance to going after the goal is actually a normal and even essential part of the hero's journey. The refusal of the call is a representation of those common fears and hesitations. that people experience when pursuing their goals. This is the time when we can identify which fears are sort of overblown, which ones are our brain's catastrophizing. And if you want to check out a video where I talk a little bit about what to do when your brain is catastrophizing, you can check out this video up here. And on the other hand, we might have some realistic reasons why we fear or hesitate to get started. Perhaps it's a lack of information or a lack of a sense of what we would need to do, and this is where we can turn to all the amazing free resources that exist out there. Whatever it is you want to do, I guarantee somebody has made a podcast about it. A lot of times our procrastination is simply just a fear of putting ourselves out there, so we can work on identifying those fears, recognizing whether or not they're sort of overblown, or also recognizing that we have the power to process that emotion of fear such that it doesn't rule our lives and keep us small in this space of refusing the call and then never moving on to the next stage of the hero's journey. So you've identified some of your obstacles, and maybe you've identified some of the things that you'd need to learn a little bit about before you can get started. That again represents the meeting of the mentor phase of the hero's journey. In the meeting of the mentor, the hero has to encounter someone who has more knowledge to prepare them for the challenges ahead. And the best news is that those mentors exist out there and you can access them today. We don't need to find our own Obi-Wan Kenobi in real life. We can find them on YouTube. We can find books and articles and podcasts. There is essentially no limit to the amount of mentors that we can gather in our hero's journey. But I do want to mention one caveat, which is that sometimes we can get stuck in the meeting the mentor phase, which is the phase of just always feeling like we need to be learning more information, that we don't know enough yet, that perhaps we need to get some kind of certification, or we need to take some courses, or we need to even go back to school in order to study that particular topic. That is a little bit of a false narrative that can get us kind of off of the path of the hero's journey. Ultimately, the hero's journey is about moving forward through this cycle, and that takes place when we move forward with our actions. So I've heard this referred to as having a bias towards action and learning how to fail early and often. Now, as a recovering perfectionist, I can completely understand why people don't really want to take some actions and possibly even have some early failures, but perhaps we can reframe them as gathering data or understanding what not to do. So I've talked about this before, but when I started making videos for YouTube, I would take notes every single time and recognize, okay, these are the things that I need to do in order to improve my skills. And it felt like leveling up in a video game. And even when I had experiences like filming an entire video without turning my microphone on, so there was no sound and the video was completely useless, I learned from that experience, and now I'm 100% sure every time I sit down to record a video that the microphone is turned on this time. When it comes to finding mentors that work for you, I encourage you to look for mentors who are in the same spaces as you, the same spaces that you wish to occupy. It's also really helpful to find people who you can find some personal affinity with, because it's really useful to be able to look at someone and think, if they can do it, I could do it. If they did it, it's possible for me too. And know that those people probably felt the same exact way that you felt when they were on their own hero's journey. They're just a few more steps ahead. Next, we come to the crossing of the threshold. This is the stage of the hero's journey that represents leaving the known world and entering into the unknown world. This is the stage of the journey when the hero leaves their known world, leaves the familiar, and steps into the unknown world, the unfamiliar. This also represents the moment when the hero really takes ownership, takes agency in their own life, and takes ownership over this idea that they are in fact the hero. This is sometimes also referred to as the seizing of the sword moment in the hero's journey. So this is taking that first step. Whatever your goal might be, there's a first step that you can take. Let's use the example of starting a YouTube channel. A lot of people feel like they need to prepare ahead of time with a long script. They need to get new equipment. They need to set up a YouTube studio in their home or their apartment. But really, all it takes is just getting out their smartphone and filming a video and then opening up YouTube and uploading the video. I'm not saying it's going to be a great video, but you can get through that initial hesitation by just filming a video, uploading it, and taking that first step. But we all know this, right? We're all familiar with this idea that it's all about just getting started. For many of us, when we're getting started, we do have that initial burst of motivation that gets us to sit down and start drafting the first few pages of our novel, or setting up a business plan and making a spreadsheet, or whatever the case may be, whatever your individual goal might be. A lot of us are really familiar with the experience of making it to crossing the threshold, taking that first step, and then our motivation falters and we lose all of that momentum. So this is where the hero's journey really represents a different approach to achieving a goal. In the hero's journey, the next step is trials, allies, and enemies. Think about any story you've ever read where there's a hero character who goes from the known world to the unknown world, like Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games. There are people who represent the allies, so the helpful people who help Katniss along the way, and there are enemies. Literally, in this case, there are people who are trying to kill her. She goes through trials inside the dome of the Hunger Games. She obviously experiences huge challenges to just try to stay alive. Now, I'm hoping that for most of us in our goals, there's not really a life and death survival situation, but it can be really useful to identify those allies, those enemies, and what kinds of challenges or trials and obstacles we might face. This is something you can even do ahead of time to sort of prepare yourself to know that there are gonna be some days when you're just not feeling motivated. There are gonna be some days where life gets really busy and you can't put any work towards your goal. Maybe those are the days to use strategies like journaling to understand your emotional blocks, even using the emotion processing guide that I'm going to link up here. And another strategy that I like to use is having a daily minimum. So there's a daily minimum towards your goal that you set ahead of time that says something truly like so small, so possible that even if you are having the worst day of your life, your car breaks down and it's raining outside and your, relationship ends, whatever's going on in your life, there's something you can do that represents this daily minimum value of effort towards your goal. So for somebody who is wanting to get in really good shape, they really want to build their muscles, which, something that I always talk about doing but never seem to get around to, their daily minimum might be to do 1 push-up. Now, you might be thinking, okay, what's the point of doing 1 push-up? It's not about the 1 push-up, it's about this commitment to the goal. There are some days where that's the best we can do. I have a daily minimum that I will work on my novel, my historical fiction, for 10 minutes. And I didn't start at 10 minutes. When I started, my daily minimum was 2 minutes of writing, because that was the amount of time that I would never tell myself I simply do not have 2 minutes to work on my writing. And over time, I've built up this daily minimum to 10 minutes. That's not to say that I only spend 10 minutes a day, but if I spend those 10 minutes a day, then I know that I have made that next step, that I'm moving forward in my own hero's journey towards being a novelist. The idea of enemies might be people that don't want to see you succeed, or more often you perceive them as not wanting to see you succeed. And you can use these in one of 2 ways. One way is just to recognize that they very likely don't actually feel that way. They just have other stories that they're telling themselves. So for example, let's say you have a goal that you want to start your own business, but your family believes that it's better for you to get a solid career job working for a law firm or working for a bank, something along those lines. They just have a different story about what being successful means. And it's okay to have different stories. In fact, the reality is we always have different stories. Then there might be enemies in the form of people who want to tear you down or be negative about your goals. I'm going to offer some controversial advice here, which is use them as fuel to prove them wrong. Anytime I've ever set a goal and I've shared it with somebody and their response was to subtly undermine my dream, I often just file that person away as somebody who doesn't get it, and then I decide that I'm not making anything with the goal of trying to convince them of its value. I'm not in the business of trying to convince people of my own value that I see in myself. But it does help me to think, you know what? When I succeed, because I am determined to succeed in this goal, it's gonna feel really good to go back to that person and say, check it out, I did the thing that you said I couldn't do. For many of you, that feeling of being doubted by others might represent the darkest, lowest stage of the hero's journey. That's known as the approach to the innermost cave. In the approach to the innermost cave, the hero prepares for their greatest challenge. In stories, we see this as they often literally go into a cave, as in Star Wars or in the Hunger Games. But in real life, what this looks like is actually about preparing for that significant challenge in the journey. And this involves the mental and physical preparations to overcome those blocks. What I like to recommend for any of you who've decided to join me and go on your own hero's journey is to prepare some thoughts that you would like to practice thinking. Now, these can be thoughts that you aspire to believe about yourself, but I actually recommend that you try to find thoughts that you already on some level believe about yourself and prepare those as sort of your mental preparation for that time when you're feeling the most challenged, when you're feeling as if it's just not possible to have the thing that you want, to achieve the goal that you wish to achieve. This leads directly into the ordeal. The ordeal in the hero's journey is where the hero faces their critical challenge. In stories, this is often the moment when the hero is facing their biggest fear or perhaps even imminent death. But my hope is for all of you that when you face the ordeal, it has more to do with facing your innermost self-doubt, or perhaps your own version of self-criticism. So in the case of me making videos for my YouTube channel, I would describe my ordeal as moments in time where I have felt completely overwhelmed and decided to take a break and maybe took a few months off from making videos. And I could have easily let that ordeal defeat me, but the whole point of using the hero's journey is to recognize that this is a normal experience for anyone who's going after a goal and anyone who's trying to achieve something great and perhaps, answer that call to adventure. The ordeal is the natural reaction, the natural result of chasing after something. And we don't have to allow it to stop us. We can build our skills of resilience and persistence by recognizing this as a stage in the process. And if we do that, we reach my favorite stage of the hero's journey, which is the reward stage, where the hero obtains something of great value. And in the case of achieving your goal, it might mean achieving the actual goal, but what I have come to find that is much more valuable in my own life is achieving a new identity as a person who goes after the things that matter to me. Building a new sense of self-trust that regardless of what happens in my life, regardless of the tests, the trials, the enemies, the ordeal, all of those challenges, I am building a new relationship to myself as a person who can speak out loud about the things that I want in my life, and I can work towards them, even if there are challenges along the way, with my team of mentors, whether those are people I literally know or people I only know through their content that they share in their own hero's journey. This is where we also get to redefine what it is we're trying to achieve. A lot of people know that when we achieve our goals, we often don't feel as good as we thought we would. It's kind of this strange arrival fallacy where we expect to feel fantastic and for it to last forever, but we achieve our goal and we feel like, I guess, yeah, on to the next thing. Or we might even feel like that wasn't really all that great at the end of the day. But this is where it's really critical that we reevaluate the journey and how it's changed us as a person. And the goal gets translated from the thing we wanted to achieve or the number we wanted to reach in our bank account into a new understanding of ourselves and a new sense of self-trust and self-confidence. And finally, we go to the stage of the hero's journey that's known as the return to the known world. So the hero's journey is often portrayed as a circular story where we begin in the known world, travel into the unknown world, deal with the lowest points in the ordeal, and then eventually return to the known world, but with a newfound sense of self. On this road back to the known world, this is a great moment of reflection for the hero, because they're returning to this place, but they are not the same person. And when we have gone after something that's really meaningful to us and achieved our goal, we are a changed person, if only because we now believe that whatever we thought was impossible was possible. And this stage of seeing ourselves in a new way, having a newfound sense of self-trust, is actually a stage in the hero's journey called the resurrection. This is where the hero faces a final test. And that final test is where everything is at stake. They often experience a personal transformation. So it's not really possible to go through the phases of the hero's journey without becoming a different person. In the same way that going after a goal, regardless of the outcome and regardless of the trials and challenges along the way, once we've started working towards something, we are not the same person we were before when we were living in this unknown world and before the call to action. We have changed fundamentally. We have transformed and even alchemized ourselves into another state of being. So in this stage of the hero's journey, the resurrection, the critical element is to reflect on the person that you've become as a result of going after this goal. A lot of times goals even change midway through. Like we think we're going after one goal, and then as a result of actually trying things, we pivot, we make changes, we adapt and evolve as a person. So reflecting on this is a critical stage of integration. And that helps us to integrate all of these elements of these sides of our psyche and become a more whole person who understands our place in the world. The final stage of the hero's journey is called the return with the elixir. I love all these terms that Joseph Campbell uses. They're so magical and they remind me so much of like my favorite stories from being a kid, or my favorite books, honestly, that I read as an adult. Anything with a sort of element of playfulness and magic. And in this stage, the hero returns home transformed. So no longer the same person they were before. And oftentimes the key element of the hero's journey is that the hero returns to their known world with either knowledge or some kind of gift for the people that they left behind when they initially answered that call to action. So this is the moment where whoever is on their own hero's journey, as they've integrated their experiences during the phases of achieving their goal, and now they're a new and transformed, even resurrected person, now they can share those gifts with others. This is why we see so many people who have achieved great things want to go back and share with others, whether that's teaching or writing or even just making videos to tell people about this process, whatever it is they want to do. Many people feel this deep desire at the end of their hero's journey to return to their known world and to lift up other people. And if you're the type of person who's motivated by the idea of being an inspiration or helping others to achieve the things they want to achieve in life, and I know that that's something that I can relate to, this final stage of the hero's journey is all about returning to the known world and sharing those gifts with others to help them start their own hero's journey. So that's exactly why I decided to make this video, because I've been on my own hero's journey in terms of making videos for my YouTube channel, figuring out what exactly it is I want to do with my time and my creativity and my energy, working on my novel, which has been such a delight and I hope that you can follow along with my journey this year, and ultimately returning to the known world to share this gift, to share this elixir of knowledge with others. Thanks for watching. Are you on a hero's journey? Comment below and let me know what it is that you're up to.